Today we have our dear friend Mahtab and her beautiful daughter Ava.
Yes.
I had to remember avocado like you told me.
That's a good trick. Or kava.
Or kava. Oh, I like kava. Yes, I like that better.
Yeah.
Welcome. We are so happy to have you guys.
Thank you.
Today our topic is going to be on youth mental health, which is something I feel like is not spoken about enough. So, but before we do begin the show, I want to start off with a quote. The first step to healing is knowing you are not alone. Awareness brings light, and in that light, hope grows, strong enough to carry you through. I thought that was just so beautiful. It's Chat GPT. It's not a known author.
Way to go.
I know, right? Anyway, so I already welcomed you guys. Should we start with our questions?
Yeah. Sure.
Because we have a plethora of questions for you.
I know. I see like 3 pages. Y'all are putting me to work.
Yes, we are. So, how would you define youth mental health in today's context?
So when it comes to youth mental health, I think I look at the way I conceptualize it is in like 3 main categories. One is a young person going through the transition of life, which is a lot of transient, rapidly changing time of our lives, is what we define as our youth. And my experience has been mostly with young adults and adolescents. The 11 years of my career was spent with that group. So a lot of my, I guess, token of wisdom comes from my work in that part of my career. So the first lane would be the relationship with yourself. Because life changes constantly around you, and as a young person, we often are thinking about ourselves in terms of what someone else wants us to be. So really creating that quiet space so that that person can start identifying who they are at the core. So that's one lane, is the relationship with self. The other is the paramount presence of peers in a young person's life, right? A lot of times when we define ourselves is through, am I a good friend? How do others see me? And I know this applies for adulthood too, but it's especially the case for when you're young. You're constantly looking for that external validation. So it's the relationship that you have with yourself as a person in a relationship. And I know culturally it's different. In some cultures, we really promote, peer relationships early on. In some cultures, adults, the parents are very much involved in that person's, who do you talk to, who do you hang out with. So I know we kind of operate on a continuum, but there is that component of who am I in a relationship. And then the third lane is the pressures. And I think in this time and age, the pressures of the greater society. So the person within the context of a culture, within the context of social media. Like, how do I define myself in relationship to this? If I don't have, 5,000 followers on TikTok, am I a nobody? And psychologically, these definitions, these perceptions of ourselves really help us either be on the right side of our mental health or kind of take a downward spiral, because these are kind of impossible things to constantly keep up with. The other thing with youth mental health is that I love that you started the quote with hope. Youth are actually the best group to work with because, it's the old saying, once it's a lot easier to help a child form good habits around their mental health than go fix a 50-year-old like me and undo the damage. Because as adults, we have to unlearn the bad ways that we learn to cope, and then we have to relearn the new ways. But when you're young, there's actually a lot of hope. So even when I'm training or supervising other clinicians, I'm very careful about the words I use. I really don't want to give a young person a diagnosis too prematurely, because I want to respect those 3 lanes. have we looked at everything that this person can possibly be struggling with in the lane of relationship with self? What about relationship with who I am within a context of a relationship? And then where do I stand in the greater society and how I identify? And it's only after all those three things have been visited and revisited that you would want to actually give a young person a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I know it's in a nutshell, but not so much in a nutshell. But to me, that's how I look at youth mental health and my approach.
Now, I know this has nothing to do with youth mental health, but you did mention something about change as far as like adults. It's harder for us. Is there, okay, so can, as adults, can we change? Like, we're used to being a certain way for so long, and certain habits that we have developed over the years, we're so used to being that way, and those habits sometimes are not benefiting us in any way. Are we able to change those things? Like, can we change?
Absolutely. It's, your brain is a muscle.
Yeah.
You see, when I was training for the half marathon, like some of the people that were that I would see on the track were 70-year-olds.
Wow.
So absolutely we can change. It takes us a little bit more effort and the acknowledgement of how we got to that habit. And in most adults, like if the habits are very much like big statements in their lives, I would say maybe for a young person, they can form a new habit, a new pattern or sequence of a good coping mechanism, whereas an adult may need a year because we're a little bit more likely to slip back and get in our own heads about things. But if we do a good job creating hope and the right incentives, the young mind is already equipped to want to grow and want to expand. So that's going to be the only difference. Maybe a little bit more time and conscious effort, right?
And the willingness to want to change.
Yeah. The other thing that's tricky is, even as adults, it's, again, our environment. Like, let's say maybe in my 20s, I struggled with alcohol or cigarette, and then my whole family is identifying me constantly to that not so great behavior sequence. And we just keep reminding that person, oh, but he's having a good week, but once he sees that bottle, we lose him again. So it's not even, at that point, it's not your struggle. It's almost like you're now swimming against the current.
And you kind of talked about that with like youth, how it's not really good to label them too earlier if you don't know what they're going through. And I feel like especially with youth, it's like once they hear it, they label themselves as that, and they become that even if they weren't that in the first place. And with adults, maybe they're less prone, but still prone. But for youth especially, like, you're right, like being careful about all that. It's like the stereotype effect.
Yeah. And so one thing I do like about working with youth is actually coming up with a game plan on tackling the problem at hand versus chasing labels.
Yeah.
So what it is that, I don't know, for a lot of youth, I think self-esteem is a big one. Sometimes they gravitate towards the wrong patterns of behavior because maybe they need validation, maybe they're lacking kind of those core skills or self-regulation. But these are all things that could be addressed, and they don't need labels.
Yeah.
So I think, it's a different approach, but we definitely can accomplish a lot in the process.
Okay. And then what are some common mental health concerns you see in teens today?
I'm going to say mine, and then maybe she has her peers.
I would love
too.
to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anxiety. Anxiety and self-destructive patterns. I see a lot of youth, especially from some of our cultures, like they live in silos. They're one version of themselves to their peers, and there's another version of themselves to the parents. and those versions don't even like compare. And that's in mental health, we refer to incongruencies. When you start creating these different worlds in your life, in your head, that's just as much energy that you spend trying to keep up with these worlds that causes anxiety, causes depression, and just a discontentment, because then you're never really happy in any of those contexts because you're too busy trying to keep up
two different rules,
your versions or multiple versions of your truth. So as adults, as parents, some of the work that falls on us is creating an environment for transparency and emotional safety for our youth. But what's the struggle you think?
No, I think you're so right. And I think, especially now, this sounds like, everyone says this, but social media, like, it wasn't as big of a deal, I feel like, 50 years ago. But because there are these distractions, it makes it harder to deal with things. Like, even my own experience, like this morning, I deleted Instagram and Snapchat because I was like, I have a lot going on in my life right now, and doom scrolling or whatnot is just increasing my anxiety, making me not deal with my problems, and it's just a distraction. It makes you feel disconnected. You're not present, you're not grounded, just so many things. It causes even more problems than you may already have to begin with. And then you're right, like the discontentment because you're constantly comparing yourself on social media. People put on like a certain persona for their followers, and then in real life they're one way. Like, I'll see someone that I follow on Instagram in person, and they won't even like really talk, but they seem so extroverted on their page, but in person they're shy, they have social anxiety, they're living in this bubble, they're living in a fantasy world pretty much. Like, their interaction is through social media, through games. It's just not like it's different. The human connection part is different. Connecting with people is different. A lot of people, I'm a barista at Starbucks, they can't even make eye contact. They can't, like, you ask them about themselves, they're like, what? Like how are you doing? They're just like, I don't know. People have a hard time really facing problems, facing people, having connection. Like, just being present is really tough for a lot of people, I feel like. But
that's such a good point, because we create this pseudo connection.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like
Pseudo?
Pseudo is another root word for false.
Yeah.
Like the illusion of a connection. If I post a picture of myself, I don't know, in Cancun, and 25 people love on me on, Instagram.
But those people are the most lonely people at the same time.
Yeah.
They may have a lot of friends, but they don't actually have people
so
who are there
that's
for them.
discrepancy, right?
Yeah.
So it's a pseudo, because the real connection comes from saying, having an authentic conversation. Like when someone says, like when I was here last time, and Lynn's like, how are you? I'm like, oh my God, not good. Yeah. I mean, I lost both my parents. That's, a lot of us just kind of brush it off, and we want to keep this face, and
they go on autopilot.
Yeah. And then what we do is just like bury the emotions, but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
They're showing up in lack of sleep. They're showing up in anxiety, in, the next time I see this person, how am I going to be? What is my world going to look like? And as adults, we have more agency over our lives. So multiply the intensity of anxiety, depression, loneliness that we face, multiply that by 10. Because young people not only are dealing with that, then they're dealing with like their parents' stuff, right? We lay the rules on them, we put restrictions. The teachers are saying you're not good enough. The parents like, well, if you don't pass this class, so multiply that by so much more, and you're powerless.
Yeah.
So in order for us to, empower the youth, I think we should first follow like what we preach.
Yeah.
And create an authentic space for our families, where at least at home our youth don't have to keep up with all those multiple faces. If we create a space for our kids where they can truly be themselves, and we have become their soft landing. And then if we can't, like there's times which we're navigating that, because I lost 2 parents and they were her grandparents.
Yeah.
And my mom was more of a maternal force in her life, because I just went to work and, passed on the milk. And my mom and her have a very great connection. And so when I'm like, oh gosh, I have to do my own grief work, and at that point I'm not helpful to her. But the way we're trying to create the safe space is, how's everybody doing with their grieving, you know? I have, a couple of times a week I check in with our brother. He's like, Mom, I'm grieving this. How are you doing? Now he's learning to kind of check in with me and deconstruct my grief. Or I noticed you did such and such. I know you did that because it reminded you of your mom. Like, those kinds of conversations. And it doesn't have to be sad. It could be something that you just share together, and that deepens connection.
Yeah.
Right? She checks in on me like all day long. She's like, oh, I think you're hiding behind your work, or and I'm held accountable to my grief process. But I want you to share a little bit, if it's okay with you, about what space you create to nurture your mental health. Because now, for the first time, you're in college, you're living away from home, you're a working college student. There's so many layers.
I think a part of it is like knowing that we're all human, and the first step is awareness. And I'm very close with my parents, with you, with your boyfriend, with all my bonus parents, my adopted, like everyone. I have such a great support system, and I don't keep anything to myself. So I feel like, I'm so loved, and I can share all these things, and I'm still loved after I share these things and my mistakes. And so I'm very grateful for that. I feel like not everyone gets that, but you can always find that, even with my friends that I have, like the people I met in San Antonio this past year. They came down to visit me yesterday. I'm very vulnerable with them. Like, I've just met some pretty amazing people, and I have a great support system, and knowing that you're not alone is so great, because everyone goes through these kind of things. And when you feel like you're not alone, you feel 10 times better, because by yourself you can't really deal with a whole lot. And then I do mental coaching. I did it this morning, and that's been really nice for me, because you get so caught up in life and you forget to take care of yourself. And I know maybe I'm struggling with this and this, so I am intentional about working on those things, even though I'm not perfect, but nobody really is. And when you admit you're not perfect, you're 10 steps ahead of the person next to you, claiming they're doing great, they're doing fine. Just being real and knowing that you're not alone.
I love that.
And my mom's a psychologist, so I just...
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how's it living with a mom that's a psychologist?
It's a blessing and a
how's
curse.
that been?
I love it. It's got two.
A blessing and a
Because when
curse.
they were little and they would make a mistake, and Mom, no, not those 5-hour lectures. We will straighten up our act. Please spare us.
No, but
No articles.
I do think about what you say, though, even though I may not, react in the moment, because you do drop a lot on me. But
These are true facts coming out.
Yeah.
what you say to me, I say to other people, so it is doing something.
That's
But
so awesome. So it does work. So now I know that when I am sending these things to my little ones, I know that they're listening somewhere. That's good
I
to
always
see.
I don't want to be the mom who just lectures. So I said, the things that made me remember and retain information was when my cognitive part of my brain was stimulated. And to this day, if I'm in a struggle, I block 3-4 hours and I go hide and I read.
I love that.
And then I hopefully come out with something better than what I went in with. And so when they were little, I would send them things to read about the behavior, or I wanted the consequences to be like fitting.
You would make us write 100 sentences.
The 500, or the time like her brother, who locked who out of a room. And so we looked up how much it costs to get a locksmith out, and
I locked him out.
yeah, okay, that's and then so she had to pay out of her money to. Nobody got grounded on my watch,
Okay.
but they had to learn something from.
Well, both of my parents are very different. I got grounded by the other parent. There was two very different parenting styles, but
Yeah.
I came out just fine. But
So we're going to do a parenting 101 after this. I need some tips. I'll bring my pen and notebook with me. That's awesome.
No, there's times she teaches me things because it's like, you know, I'm outdated. Like, she's gonna go to UT. I'm having FOMO because she's gonna get to walk down those same halls, maybe have some of my professors. Hopefully they're healthy and still teaching. But you know, you're a different version of yourself. I mean, from your 20s to your 40s. And so being open that our child can teach us something, and it's not always just one way that we're teaching them. I think that a lot of times we get into our head about, or even when you're supposedly an expert, is there such a thing as an expert if the world is constantly changing? Like, I'm constantly outdated. You know, I have to keep up with my CEU, so even that word expert is kind of fluid or meaningless in the right context. So conversation, connection, I think you keep referring to how you ground yourself. She takes care of her mental hygiene, gym, nutrition, like better than me at this phase of my life. And I think part of it is because I have a lot on my plate.
you put too much on your plate.
Yeah, but she calls me out. And I think that emotional hygiene or our mental well-being, if you teach those habits to be able to say no to something because you need to be addressing yourself, is really helpful in the long run.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted.
Oh, no. No. This is all very refreshing to hear, actually. So how do developmental stages, early adolescence, middle adolescence, late adolescence, influence the kinds of struggles students face?
So when you look at the developmental like life cycle, if you want to go have more in-depth reading, love Erickson's work, Piaget. Because in Erickson's work there's a lot of kind of reference to the social development, how each phase of our lives we deal with a unique struggle. And this is stuff that, it's kind of captured in developmental psychology. And we use it to design school curriculums. We use it to, to actually, like, do marketing for youth. Like, a lot of the Erickson and Piaget work is relevant even to this day in terms of what each kind of cohort or age is facing at the time. And then what you do. So as an adult, it's good to read. When you go to your pediatrician, they say at this age, you need this vaccine, you can have this kind of food. There's a whole complementary manual of what you do socially. Oh my God, a 3-year-old loves to, sort and organize colors. Or at this age, your son or daughter is ready to, make vowel sounds and introduce readings and bring those, remember those Bob books where you take the sounds and the vowels. And so the key word there is being age appropriate. Sometimes as adults, especially when you have a high functioning kid or smart kids, we forget there's a kid in the room. So we plan our lives around really what we need or what we think we should be doing for our kid. And that's not even, it's not matching. It's like a lock and a key. So having that conversation with our kids, or are you still enjoying these things? Is this still a good idea to go to Disney World again, you know.
Yeah.
If mommy gave you $2,000, how would you plan the family vacation? And kind of inviting them in to have that input, because over time, a little bit of that, it creates agency in that person, and they start you know, having a hand in who they become. Because I meet a lot of young adults who I often refer to them as over-scripted, because I'll have one session with them, and of course they're over 18 and the mom and dad can't come in the room, and I'm like, when am I gonna get to know you? And I had this with a young person actually about a few months ago, and she started crying. She's like, I don't know who I am. But I could, you know, talk to you about who my mom wants me to be all day long.
Wow.
And then she went into even deeper than that. She said, my mom wants me to be this because my grandmother, da 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 da. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not even your session.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So as parents, we need to be very conscious about projecting.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed that. Maybe I didn't get to go. I did go to UT, but I, you know, if I didn't, and I would make so much stress for her because I didn't get that dream accomplished, and now I'm making it her problem. That is not good parenting. That parent needs to go create a space for themselves so that they can give their child the freedom of who they can potentially be.
Yeah.
Right? She's a representation of herself, independent of me. Although it's so cute when people say you look like you're each other, but really in who she's gonna become, I need to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, hold that thought. We're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue this amazing conversation. You're listening to 103.5 Hum FM. Welcome back to Chai Time here on 103.5 Hum FM. For those of you that just tuned in, we are in conversation with Mahtab and her beautiful daughter, Ava, and we are talking about youth mental health. So I have curious to know, how has technology and social media affected the youth today?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I think it has moved us away from the skills that we need to develop, especially like my angle is always about like healthy relationships, because that's kind of my area. And I think technology helps us get the word out quicker, have a broader reach in messaging, but we have suffered a great deal in terms of like authenticity, in terms of the connection, the habits that we need to create meaningful relationships. That's where it's hurt us. I know it's something we cannot do away with, and it's going to always come back to our boundaries, you know, and keeping that balance. My rule of thumb was like 1 to 2 hours of letting something else entertain them, but then we needed to go to a park or to a swimming pool or have connection, or we lived around family, so my brothers would, you know, drop in. She's a great backgammon player. My son would win chess tournaments as a result. Like creating the social environment where, you know, we actually have to make connection. We have to come up with conversation. I think a lot of youth, a lot of young adults, like she was saying, they're great behind the screen, talking on their fingers. But if you put them in a situation, they'll literally go into full panic. Actually, we kind of dealt with something like that, and then when she became a barista, well, that was history. You know?
Oh yeah, I was so scared to go hang out with these high schoolers when I was going into 9th grade. There was like seniors and juniors playing volleyball, and I just stayed in the car. I don't want to go. I'm scared. I don't know what to say. But now I'm not scared of pretty much anything. I just show up.
Yeah. Thanks to their training, you know, now I go to any of the coffee shops, they recognize me with her. And so she's constantly
connecting with customers, connecting with people. Like, they really emphasize that a lot.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah.
And I worked in retail for 7 years, like from high school. First, I worked at the football games. I would like make nachos for the football game, and so that forces you. You know, you have to say hello to people. You have to see what they want, and I think we need to create more environments like that. In some of our cultures where we highlight collectivism, you know, as we transition to the US and living here, we become more and more inconvenienced, but we don't realize the value of having that uncle who just, you know, drops in out of, you know, without any calls, or grandparents who just, you know, they could be disruptive to what you need to do, or maybe you go to bed an hour later, or you give up something you like because an aunt is visiting from overseas, or you give up your bed. You know, that's one thing my kids knew. You don't have a bedroom. If people had to get on an airplane to come to us,
Yeah.
you need to figure yourself out. And in some cultures, that's unheard of,
Yeah.
right? But emotionally, it creates a space for us to say, there's something way bigger than just me. So when like the life knocks you down, you also lean in that. In the moments you're inconvenienced and you have to go run around the house to brush your teeth, but the emotional gain you have, like since my mom passed away, every single day, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins from Iran are in constant communication through Instagram. You know, like that's what I'm saying. Social media is not bad, but it depends on how you use it, right? So creating connection, but then knowing the difference between pseudo connection. What am I using social media to distract, to numb myself, and just like not think about the things I need to do, or maybe the feelings I'm supposed to process, versus I'm reaching out to a cousin who lives in France that I normally wouldn't, you know, be able to connect with.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered
Yes.
some of the
Yes,
questions.
it did. It did. So, what are the early warning signs that a teen might be struggling with anxiety, depression, or other issues?
So, you know, of course, in this context, we don't want to make any analysis of any behavior, because obviously you need a full intake interview and to really get to the bottom of what a diagnosis is. But in general, I think some red flags for youth are increased isolation, excessive sleep or too little sleep, and what their baseline used to be and what they're moving away from. So like, are they, I don't know, did they used to have a healthy appetite? Now they don't. When grandma used to come to visit, would they at least peek out, and now they're just like staying in their room? Did they used to have straight A's? Now they're failing everything. So these are all like indicators of what's going on mentally and emotionally, because believe it or not, when we're emotionally shut down, everything shuts down. Even like our bathroom habits, the way we eat, the way we sleep, the way we connect with others. So anything that's off, and I try to tell parents and even like family members, like, don't adopt that language, oh, he's just a teenager. Instead, be curious, because just because they're a teenager, or that's just, you know, this is their age, they're going through a phase, you may miss some really important information that could help you connect with your child.
Okay.
I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah.
I think all, like what you said is so true, but I think sometimes you can't even tell if someone's going through something at the same time. Like, it looks so different for everyone. Just because every case is unique, but there are some general indicators, like you're right.
So what would be a good, like, let's say she notices something in her niece or someone that she loves. What would be a way to ask them how they're doing so that they're more likely to engage?
Well, I think it's not good to assume, and it's not good to expect a certain answer. But if you're truly just checking in with someone, like, how are you? I know most people just say, I'm good, and then that's it. But, like, truly checking in, or, you know, opening yourself up and being vulnerable, and that person will most likely open up and be vulnerable too. Like, it's a two-way street. You can't get everything out of someone without, like, giving a little too, you know?
How would you start that conversation?
Well, I guess you're kind of gauging someone. Like, you can always check in, and then some people, they do open up. Other people are more skeptical, or they're a little bit, I don't know. A lot of people, they don't open up, or you have to share something and get vulnerable and be honest for them to open up. Like, in general, I'm very honest with people. I'm very blunt. I share a lot about myself, and in return, some people will start opening up to me too. Even people that don't usually share things, they're very private. Like, they will open up to me. So I guess it's also a personality thing too.
Yeah.
And, you know, reading people energy, like, there's so many factors, so I don't really know, but I think someone can kind of tell when you genuinely care and you're truly trying to check in with them, not just, oh, how are you? Okay, let me talk about myself now.
Yeah.
You know? But if you're just being there for someone, I think they appreciate it, even if they don't share so much, which that kind of goes in with the expectation thing. Someone can still appreciate you, but not necessarily
Wanting to
want
share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I
Allow
think
that.
both is okay.
Yeah. You can't force information.
You can't force it, yeah.
And then how we are the keepers of someone's information.
I love that. Yeah.
That's important because that will either make it safe or not safe.
Yeah. Okay. How do you differentiate typical teenage moodiness from something that needs professional attention?
Patterns of the behavior.
Okay.
So how long has it been? What has it looked like in the last 90 days? Are there other things attached to it, such as like decreased appetite, things that we physically notice? You know, sometimes like hormonal things happen, both in boys and with girls. Are there any significant losses? So loss is not just grief. You know, sometimes loss is a friendship gone bad. You know, someone that used to be a best friend. And I have a lot of clients that, I mean, they were just devastated because this was a friend they had since kindergarten. And then the way she described it was, we broke up. And it was the same, you know, it was a friend, a childhood friend, and over actually a social media dilemma. But, and so that breakup caused her to have panic attacks. Like the next birthday, she didn't even know what, you know, it would look like for her. So paying attention to who is living in your child's head and how is that going for them? Because, you know, our child is everything to us, but when we open the door every morning and they go to the Shark Tank, you know, what does it look like? I remember my son one day, I think it was the fifth grade, no, it was third grade. He told me that he had a bully. And I usually, you guys know, I don't cancel anything.
Yeah.
I canceled my entire afternoon. And we went to his favorite burger spot. We went around the lake. We did, you know, I'm like, this is a lot that it takes a lot out of him to say this.
Yeah.
And then we dove into like, okay, what is this bully telling you? Like, how do I support you without looking like that crazy mom that's raising heck at school? Like, what does that look like? And what do you want me to be doing for you?
Yeah.
And that was, you know, it's stuff like that, to have that, you know, enough intuition, read your child, ask them what they need, not what your version of what they need.
Yeah. Just don't show up to the school and start talking to the
exactly.
bully. Yeah.
And then there were times like, Mom, you write some really effective emails. Can you help me do X, Y, and Z? So then, you know, finding your child's currency too. Like, how do I meet this person where they're at and help them with this hurdle? And sometimes it was doing nothing. Like he said, just the fact I knew you were home, I felt better.
Oh.
You know, and then I'm like, I didn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
But in his mind,
Well, you do a lot. You always show up for us. Like, you're very reliable, and that's, like, when a parent or when a kid has a reliable parent, that makes a world of a difference. Like, I mean, I feel like every child should have that, but not a lot of children do have that. So
Yeah.
you consistently showing up for us, no matter how you're feeling, or maybe we said the wrong thing, you still did everything that we needed you for.
Yeah,
And
that's important.
So, yeah, I think that's very healthy.
I think it's easy to be a good parent when you have good kids too.
Well, depends on what the parent thinks, but
I love it. You guys have such a cute relationship. I love this.
we do have a good relationship.
I'm gonna cry, y'all.
I know, it's so
How many
sweet.
more minutes of this?
Let me call Iman right now and can we get her on air?
No, but we fight too,
cute.
trust.
Yeah, we have opinions.
But that's good.
But she, you know,
I
we
call her
hold
out.
space.
Yeah, that too.
When should a parent or caregiver seek professional help immediately? So some signs that we just talked about. When should they seek immediate help?
When there's signs of emotional shutdown, obviously.
What would that look like?
Extreme acts of aggression, and there is no like de-escalation, right? That just means that central nervous system is
There's no regulation too.
yeah. So sleeplessness for many nights, because there's a lot of things that parents also, we're not aware. We were actually talking about that, you know, the whole vaping thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, sweetie, you're gonna go into like the capital of all this.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't go to 6th Street until after I was married. So that whole side of Austin, I just kept myself in a bubble.
Yeah.
But she's going to be living on campus. I chose to live a little bit more close to the nature, like where the last UT bus stop was.
Yeah.
And I love the creek in the back and, you know, going on hikes. But she's going to, there's probably, I don't know, weed coming through her walls.
Well, it was like that at the last place.
I know, I couldn't like go in the
not even getting
elevator.
out
I'm
in the
like,
snow.
no, I have to wash my hair 5 times.
You exaggerate.
I
It's
told
not
her, I
that
said,
bad.
do you have a balcony? Can you like air yourself? But that's our reality, right?
Yeah.
So if you notice obvious things that maybe there is some issue involved that you don't even recognize your kid, whether it's extreme sleeplessness, something in their eye that you notice. I mean, we're all moms. We know our
Yes.
what our kids should look like. Aggression, refusal to eat, you know, self-harm stuff. That's a you know, immediate action type item.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of resources that used to not be there.
Yeah.
I know with college campuses, I think mental health is free. I know we have programs at Ibn Sina that everyone can come get a free screening. They can even have up to like 4 sessions to get them out of a crisis. We have other sister organizations that deal with different kind of mental health concentration areas, even relationship stuff. You know, there's this whole world of youth in relationships, like domestic violence and really unhealthy type of relationships that need help. So creating space. We have a lot going on right now with telehealth. So like a lot of my couples counseling sessions are actually young couples, like 22, 25. And
That's good.
They're realizing they're not in a good habit, and
Yeah.
they're booking, you know, sessions online because they can't be here.
Yeah.
They live in San Antonio or Austin.
Yeah.
So these are all things to look for.
You know, it's funny. I always think about like growing up. If you had certain big emotions or you were going through something, it was just pretty much like, you're fine. Like, just deal with it. Go do this. Or like you weren't allowed to speak of how you are feeling because that's just the environment that it was, and that's just how you grew up. And now, like, I'm so happy to see that all these things are spoken about, because not to say like the issues are more sensitive. Like, you see so much more like youth suicides and things like that are happening compared to what it was before. I don't know if social media plays a big role in this, or if just the world has changed so much from where we grew up, we had more outside time. We were not constantly on our phones or computers or anything like that. Like, we drank water out of the hose when we got hot.
Yeah.
Now I wouldn't even allow my children to go play outside in the water. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, so it's just the times have changed so much. But I'm so happy to see that, like, these things are important. Mental health is spoken about, and just when I talk, even if I speak to my mom now, like, tell her that, oh, you know, like, Iman had big emotions today. And she goes, what do you mean big emotions? What does that mean? Like, just tell her it's okay and just move on. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's not that easy. I have to listen to her. I have to talk to her. She goes, okay, well, then what? I'm like, what do you mean, then what? Like, you're my mom. You give me advice. And she's like, no, this is just not how we do things. And I'm like, okay.
Auntie,
So
I'm coming to a house.
Yeah, I know. Like, go have a conversation with her. So, yeah, so it's, you know, it's different. It's so different from when we grew up to how our children are growing up.
So I think one key takeaway is therapy is not for wimps. Looking into yourself and looking into the parts of yourself that you don't like. And as a youth, that's where the, you know, if you want to call it under construction, if we give the youth that flexibility and that grace to go work on the parts they don't like, guess what kind of adults they're going to be, right? They're going to be more complete. They're going to be better husbands, better wives, better parents. So it's an investment. We pay for straightening our kids' teeth. We pay for, tutoring left and right. Don't ignore the kid's brain. And I say it's not for wimps, because I don't say don't have a big emotion. I say, where does the big emotions come from? And then how do we turn those emotions into something that makes you better? So I'm not sitting there and babying anybody or coddling anybody. It's actually an accountability process, right? To recognize, because I meet so many adults who lack self-regulation, and then other people are paying for their lack of self-regulation. So I don't want any parent to take any emotion lightly. If it's a light emotion and maybe it was a hit, like, it was still an emotion. And no two children are going to be the same, because those two unique brain activities, like, you can't compare two people. For you to get told, I don't know, you have a big nose at a party, could mean you may brush it off, but your friend might need plastic surgery.
Well, that happened to me. I didn't brush it off.
But I have horrible examples.
Just kidding.
But you know what I mean? Like, not everything is suited for the same. We're not cookie cutter human beings. We're all different and unique. So we should be treated as such.
Absolutely. So what does a typical intake or assessment look like for a new young client?
So typical intake interview is usually about first what that person thinks is the problem, not what mom and dad think is the problem. So oftentimes I will let a parent talk for 10 minutes, and then I'll ask them to leave. And then I will ask the person in the room, and if they're over 18, obviously they can just report on themselves. And my key thing is what is happening in the last 3 to 6 months. And the reason, even more like 3 months, unless there is an active diagnosis or that kid has been struggling a while and someone chose to bring them in a little bit later than what they should have. But I stick to very recent picture. And that's because that age is so dynamic. I don't want to go stress them out about the third grade bully if that's not where their mind is. Why go revive that story if we don't need to? So what are your current unique struggles? What is getting in the way of you waking up and wanting to face your day with enthusiasm? What is getting in the way of you wanting to form peer relationships and connection with the family? So are any of these areas suffering? and which one would we prioritize, right? Which one are you suffering the most from? And the other thing would be to fix patterns and not dwell on what happened.
Yeah.
And that's what I label that as events. There's events of our lives, and then there's patterns and sequences. I'm curious to see how your brain is like cueing into these patterns and where we need to do the most of the work.
Okay. Is there any last minute advice that you'd like to give, Ava?
You should give the advice.
Yeah, I want you to give youth the advice if they're dealing with certain issues, or just what would you tell them?
I would just say don't be too hard on yourself. I feel like, just
That's great advice.
don't be too hard on yourself. You probably would give better advice though. You go ahead.
What is your?
No, that's better advice than I would give.
I think that's really good. Yeah, yeah. don't
Not,
be
you
so
know,
hard.
I say there is a solution to everything but death. Like, honestly, I have heard some scary things happen to people, and with a safe emotional environment and the right resources, I've had kids who came in with, you know, all kinds of scratches and suicide attempts, and they're calling me and saying, Miss M, that was my nickname back in those days, I wanted you to know I just bought a house. I wanted you to know I just finished law school. So it's really possible.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Take care of
Thank
the
you.
young people in your life.
Yes, yes, they are our future.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Wow, thank you so much, both of you, for enlightening us with with all the great information that you've passed on today. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Chai Time here on 103.5 Home FM. We will see you next week, same time, same place. Bye.